Hello and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And today there's three of us and we have Tim in the middle as usual. And we have the return of some goofball, Nico Hernandez from the WeSportin days. He is back like he never left. We had him featured on the What's Wrong with the Chicago Bears video a couple months back. And now we're having him on for the Super Bowl predictions. We've been running through predictions and recaps all throughout the playoffs. And here it is, the championship of football, Super Bowl 56. The Los Angeles Rams are taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. So without further ado, Tim, are you ready to go?
Let's run it.
Let's run it. So both of these teams have definitely earned their place to be here. The Los Angeles Rams taking out Arizona, Tampa Bay, and San Francisco on their way into this game, and Cincinnati taking down Vegas, Tennessee, and Kansas City to be here. Both of these teams have definitely fought through a lot this season. And the way I would describe these two teams in a nutshell is talent versus toughness. With Los Angeles, you have the all-in on winning, the star-studded, talented roster. And quite frankly, for the roster that they've built, anything less than a Lombardi would be an absolute failure. And then Cincinnati is the little team that could. They didn't expect to be here. I don't even think anybody on their roster expected them to be here, but they are, because they just keep finding a way to win. You know, they play tough.
And their way is named Evan McPherson.
Yeah, pretty much. Evan McPherson has been clutch. Joe Shiesty, Joey Franchise, has led the team on his back to this point. So today we are going to predict the big game. And let's start off. Tim, what do you have in this game?
So this game proves to be very interesting in terms of sort of the offensive and defensive matchups here, because you've got the extremely talented wide receiver core for the Bengals going up against an obviously very stout Rams defense who have only gotten better and better throughout the year as they signed guys like Von Miller and even getting Eric Weddle out of retirement. I think a big question mark in this game that I took notice to, and that a lot of people are starting to question, is what effect is home field advantage going to have in this Super Bowl? Because this is now the second Super Bowl in a row where a team has played, and potentially, if the Rams go on to win, it'd be the second year in a row that the home team has actually won the Super Bowl. Which
I think it's really strange, because you say the home team. I think a more accurate term would be the host team.
Weird.
Because the Cincinnati
Rams
Bengals
have rarely ever even had home field advantage.
No, but the Cincinnati Bengals are actually technically listed as the home team in this game.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, the Los Angeles.
I guess that's just how they chose to do it. But
the Los Angeles Rams are technically the visitors. So even though it's played in their home building, they will be the visiting team. So no, but that's definitely an interesting aspect to look at in terms of home field advantage, and whether that'll play a factor. I mean, the opposing team's fan base generally travels pretty well to SoFi, and it's the Super Bowl, so it remains to be seen what's going to happen.
In terms of gameplay, I have three specific things that I'll look at, two of them being matchups. The two of them are pretty logical. You always are going to think about going into this matchup, the highly sought after matchup between Jamar Chase and Jalen Ramsey. That obviously is going to be a big tell for this game of who comes out on top of that, because Jalen Ramsey, obviously the great cornerback he is, not impervious though, because he has shown that he can get beat on occasion, seen with Tom Brady's last touchdown, which was on him, which I will love that fact till the day I die. And the other matchup to pay attention to in my mind is Cooper Kupp versus literally whoever they put on him, because it's hard to see how any individual matchup for Cooper Kupp is going to be any sort of advantage for the defense, even if they put multiple guys on him. Or
that'll probably be Mike Hilton in the slot. Mike Hilton is their best slot corner. Chidobe Awuzie on the outside.
I think it all depends on where
God forbid they have Eli Apple covering Cooper Kupp.
I think it'll be interesting to see where they line him up, because they have a couple different places that he has moved around throughout. He's not always in the slot. He is in there a lot of the time. But my third thing that I think is going to be an interesting key for this game is what version of the Rams run game are we going to see? Because in the past 2 games, we've seen them struggle a lot with the run game. In Tampa Bay, they didn't get a whole lot of yards and also fumbled the ball twice, obviously, with Cam Akers.
Well, 4 total fumbles.
Yes, 4 total. And then, of course, this previous week, they did not get pretty much anything out of the run game going against the 49ers. So with the Bengals defense, is like, will they be able to have some of that similar success and push the Rams to the pass game? Or are they going to be able to kind of have a more 2-dimensional offense and then open things up for some of those play action passes that I think they weren't getting quite as effective results on against the 49ers because the run game wasn't going anywhere. But at the end of the day, with everything that I had predicted throughout all of these playoffs, and then of course my leap of faith last week, all of these point me towards staying on the same train that I rolled into this week on, and I am going to take the Cincinnati Bengals to complete their dream run and win the Super Bowl this year.
As we know he would. I had a funny feeling that you were just going to keep riding the hot hand.
It's hard not to.
It makes sense. I see a lot of experts out there. I honestly think more experts are taking Cincinnati and the underdog than LA.
Depends where you look, I think.
But it's pretty evenly split. Let's go to Mr. WeSportin, Mr. Washington Commanders fan over there. Mr. Kami, what you got about the game?
Well, in all honesty, it's this. The problem with and I've been torn through this all week, and I haven't even decided who I think is going to win the Super Bowl, because it's just, both stories are so amazing. I know I really haven't decided. You could look at me with a weird face all you want, but because here's the thing.
Well, I mean, this is the predictions episode, so
I know I got the prediction down. Just let me get rolling.
Got to get it at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, I mean, you got 2 phenomenal stories. I mean, you have Joe Burrow last year, who came off the ACL injury and I think it was like meniscus damage and all this, and he's being put up for comeback player of the year. And then, you look at the other side, Matthew Stafford, he played for Detroit. I mean, he didn't get hurt, but his career
that alone is enough for a painful story. He played Detroit.
Right. Literally just have to say the word Detroit, and you're like, yeah, I knew what happened to you. It's understandable. But no, I mean, there's 2 amazing stories, and there's obviously there's negatives to both sides. Let's look at one thing. The Bengals. Bengals have been underdogs every game in this playoffs. That's something that we all know. And the one thing too is that if we're going to talk about one thing, I don't know why in the conversation world we're not sitting here and talking about Aaron Donald and Von Miller. We saw what Jeffrey Simmons and Bud Dupree, 2 players, what they did to Joe Burrow. Yes, Joe Burrow came out with the win, but we saw what happened to him. We're not going to erase that like it never happened. That O-line is awful, and I don't think.
Yes, they're awful. But the one thing I was going to point out, though, is we did talk a little bit, Drew and I, about this in our recap game of the AFC Championship. Is the Bengals actually came back off of that terrible performance with their offensive line and actually held the Chiefs defensive line, which is not a bad defensive line by any means.
Of course not.
And they held them relatively well. So you saw some of the promise that they can, but once again, like you said, is like, nobody on the Chiefs compares to those 2 guys, so it's definitely a huge point.
Yeah, holding down Frank Clark and Chris Jones is one thing, but then again, holding down Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, Von Miller, that's a completely different beast. Absolutely. So you can protect the quarterback all you want. Let's just see how you stack up against the best defensive line in football, and it's really not even close.
Absolutely. And the one thing too is you have to look at also is that when you're going up against those types of things, I mean, the reason why Kansas City even turned it around last year or this season was because of their D-line. Melvin Ingram, I mean, I'm not saying he's single-handedly, but he brought them back he rejuvenated that lost defensive lineman pressure.
And Nick Bolton was a big guy for that Kansas City Chiefs defense down the stretch.
Of course. But unfortunately, Kansas City didn't make it. So, We're talking about the Bengals. But, Cincinnati, they're teaming now. One thing, what's really going to be tested about Cincinnati this Sunday is that defense. That defense will get tested majorly. And the one guy they're going to get tested on is Cooper Kupp. And I'm going to tell you right now, if Mike Hilton is not guarding him the entire game through, Cooper Kupp will win Super Bowl MVP, and it's not. He'll put up numbers that are insane against them easily.
I almost think that it might even be worth for the Bengals, depending on what defenses they plan on running, whether it be a man or a zone.
Of course.
If they're running a man, they might even consider doing like a
safety high type
safety.
thing.
That's what happened. That's how Tampa
high.
Bay lost that game, because they were playing this man coverage, and Cooper Kupp broke free, beat the safety, and that's what happened.
That was mostly because of what I deem as probably one of the worst single play defensive calls in this playoffs, with the
Absolutely.
like your cover zero and leave a safety to guard the offensive player of the year, most likely. A one-on-one straight down the middle of the field.
Yeah, and lastly, another guy, I feel like we're not really even where everyone's talking about Cooper Kupp and this run game, but I feel like one guy that we're not talking about on the Bengals side too is Joe Mixon. This is the only team in the playoffs I've seen that has established a mediocre and a well thought out run game. They have Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine. We saw in that comeback game that they had versus the Chiefs, Samaje Perine started not leading the comeback, but he started off that comeback with that beautiful screen pass touchdown. So the problem with that is that the Rams, Stafford's going to throw all game. We know Stafford is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but he's also one of the most inconsistent ones too. And we've seen that. We've seen the interceptions. We've seen him throw 3 picks this year. He threw 3 picks on the Vikings. He's thrown interception. He is prone to make mistakes. I don't want to say Matthew Stafford's a changed man by going to LA, but he's still Matthew Stafford, and that's not going to change in new uniforms. So that's going to be the main issue, is that Matthew Stafford can remain turnoverless on a deep not throwing it to Bates and Von Bell. And if the Bengals can hold the run game and honestly make the Rams earn it. They got to earn it every single possession, every drive. And honestly, if I'm Cincinnati, I'm running the ball out the gate, and I'm just going to sit there and just spam run it the entire time. Make them tired, make them feel like, they can't do much. And then boom, you throw one deep pass to Jamar Chase. But my pick, though, for the Super Bowl, unfortunately, as much as I want to sit here and ride the Joe Shiesty train like all of us do, you can't pick against this home team. They're in the Super Bowl. Like Drew said, they're technically the home team. The Bengals are the home team, and the Bengals have been underdogs almost every game this season and in playoffs. But the problem is that Matthew Stafford, and like Drew said, anything less than a Lombardi means nothing for the Rams. So I think the Rams are going to come out full swing, and this game could either get really ugly or it'll get really close. It really just depends on how Matthew Stafford plays.
It's an interesting pick, the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, Nico, now I'm a little bit nervous because you got the Super Bowl wrong last year, for those who remember, and you had to eat that pepper. Hopefully, thankfully for Nico, we don't have a wager like that again this year. No. However, Nico's track record in picking Super Bowls is not the greatest.
When it comes to March Madness, I'm elite, though, for some reason. Just putting it out there. Just going to put it out there now for everyone to hear it.
Hey, we'll see.
We'll be having March Madness content when that comes around. But this is the Super Bowl. And for me, an aspect of the game that neither one of you two mentioned, you have, like others, have put a lot of attention on Cooper Kupp and Jamar Chase. And so have all of the other teams in the playoffs that have played the Rams and the Bengals. But like you guys and like those other teams, they have failed to cover the number 2 receiver, T. Higgins and Odell Beckham, 2 of the best number 2s in the NFL by a long stretch. Odell Beckham has looked rejuvenated in LA. He looks like the Odell Beckham from the New York Giants. And T. Higgins is the Pippen to Jamar Chase's Jordan, I guess, if you want to put it that way. Like, for example, in the AFC and NFC championship game, let's start there. Cooper Kupp, he was going to get his, but they forgot about Odell Beckham, and Odell went for 10 catches and over 100 yards himself. And in the AFC championship game, they limited Jamar Chase as much as they could, but then you have T. Higgins going for over 100. So you have to limit both guys. You gotta contain.
Lose the mic there.
Yeah, I almost lost the mic. And
Another guy too.
the reason why Tim and I didn't mention the Rams defensive line versus the Bengals offensive line is because that is something that will be talked about absolutely way too much. That is going to be the main focus on how the Rams win.
It's
and how
an important point, but it's the biggest one that everyone takes note of.
Exactly. So yeah, we're not saying that it's not important because it absolutely is, but we just want to cover other aspects of the game that you guys like, that the experts do not have a good handle on. Tim?
I also, there was one thing that I think is going to be interesting to watch going into like this weekend, because there's a whole lot of question marks on his availability, because I don't think he's going to practice this week. But the Rams offense can also be a whole lot different if Tyler Higbee is healthy and playing, which even if he does play this weekend, I'm not sure if he's going to be even remotely healthy. And it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he can play at all, because I believe it was an MCL sprain that he suffered in the third quarter of that NFC Championship game, which is definitely a hard injury to try to come back on in a week's time.
You also want to look at the other side, at the AFC Championship game, CJ Uzama's MCL sprain.
Yeah, so you've got both starting.
So both tight ends are
being
questionable,
knocked out with MCL sprains. So it's going to be interesting to see how those backups step up. You saw Kendall Blanton for the Rams actually fill a pretty decent role for the end of the game there, while Higbee was out. So it'll be interesting to see whether they continue to try to actually give him some decent volume going into the Super Bowl here. But I think it'll be interesting to see whether Higbee or even Uzama will play. I don't think either of them are going to have been slated to practice this week at all. But I almost wonder whether it'd be worse for either one of them to play hobbled, and what that would affect their production overall on offense.
One guy I too also want to discuss about, even on the Bengals end of it all, is middle linebacker Logan Wilson. I don't know, like, he's been kind of an underrated name this year, but he's actually been one of the more and most improving linebackers in the NFL. He came back from an injury last year, and he, at this point, he's been really helping too. And another guy too is talking about is DJ Reader, another guy they signed, and Trey Hendrickson. That line that Cincinnati has created in free agency has been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, worth the money and all that, and especially Trey Hendrickson, who even led the league last year, I believe, in sacks, didn't he not?
He was. I don't know if he led. He was at least in the top three, I think.
Yeah, I don't think he led. He had a lot of sacks though, and he had even more this year. So Trey Hendrickson has been a really, really key part. So now I think it's time for me to make my prediction. Nico, you pick the Rams. Tim, you pick the Bengals.
I do like the fact that you're the tiebreaker.
Now it's time for me to be the tiebreaker, and it's not only the tiebreaker between the three of us, it is the tiebreaker for my absolutely mediocre playoff prediction record, because I have gone 6-6. So I can't go 500 here. So this will settle it. If I were to bet on this game, I would take Cincinnati and the points and the under. That's my little running the table betting nugget for those out there, because both teams, they have gone under in their previous playoff games, and Cincinnati, they play great teams really, really well. So they're going to find a way to, keep it close. However, I have to go with Nico here and side with the Los Angeles Rams to win Super Bowl 56. You could go either or. You could go either or, but in my head, I can go back and forth and way overthink this and turn my head into an absolute pretzel. So it's am I going to go with the talent, or am I going to go with the Bengals it factor? Mm-hmm. I am going to go with the talent of the Rams. I think they will be able to play enough mistake-free football, and they have also played games that have been like close one-score games. It's not just Cincinnati that's been winning everything by one score. You saw the Rams prevent a Tom Brady comeback, which I think was good for all of the NFL and knocking him out, and then San Francisco, they stuck around enough to give him a scare, but LA has persevered through that as well. I don't know. I'm not going to overthink this too much. I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford to get his first Super Bowl ring. But
anyone else just really happy that Tyler Boyd made the Super Bowl?
No.
For fantasy football purposes, I'm happy for him because he is such a liability, and he's in the Super Bowl now. Good for him. Great for him.
Man. You know,
Yeah, all Tyler Boyd
matchup.
jokes aside.
You did mention like the close games aspect, and I think something that's actually interesting to note here in terms of if this game does end up to be a close game, for instance, a tie game late or a team is down like a field goal late. I actually think that like that is part of the reason why I'm even more inclined to take the Bengals on this one, because of the fact that Matt Gay has proven to be a little bit spotty at times, including here in the playoffs, where I believe it was I forgot which game. I believe he missed a 47-yard field goal short.
Yeah,
that was
which
Tampa
is
definitely
Bay,
like a
I think.
like a
I think
that's
I'm pretty sure that was
not
Tampa Bay in
particularly
Tampa
common.
Bay, where it looked good, and then it just kind of died, and
Just
everybody
kinda
was
died.
like super duper confused. Tim, I mean, I agree with you. The special teams, Money McPherson has been absolutely cash, and
He
he's
has
just a
been
rookie.
money.
So the Bengals have the edge in the special teams if it comes down to that. But
Can you imagine the story? Can you imagine the story of McPherson?
what a great
is the
story that
savior
would
yet
be.
again?
But that's why they play the game. And I think that's going to wrap it up for our Super Bowl 56 prediction. Tim, you're riding the Joe Shiesty train with the Bengals. Nico and I are taking the Los Angeles Rams. And Nico, thank you so much for hopping on. Where can we find you? Because I know you make stuff.
Tinder. I'm joking. Joking.
This is a plug opportunity, man.
You can find me
funny
on
guy.
YouTube, TikTok, and that's pretty much it.
Where at?
Oh, on a WeSportin Podcast on YouTube and WeSportin on TikTok.
He's like, you can find me at Batman.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
At
glad you're
Batman.
taking this plug opportunity seriously. All right. That's all we got.
Tim said Tinder.
All right. That's all we got. Until next time, we out.